Tinubu is promising so much money in the economy, where will that money come out? This is a country now that is embedded in a debt, you know, about if, when elected, whosoever is elected, if the CBN Ways and Means are securitized, Nigeria will be hanging on a debt of 77 trillion naira. That is huge.
Yeah, and we'll have a debt servicing figure.
Borrowing to pay salaries, borrowing for almost everything. So where will he, Tinubu, if elected, get this money, which Kalu also mentioned earlier? So it's going to go back to printing of money or go to the National Assembly?
I mean, let's see what he would do on taxes. That will be different. That's number one for me. Number two, they will be going back to CBN. There is no way out from it. Because debt servicing figures projected to reach 10 trillion naira by 2025 because of the principals that we paid down, because of Eurobond payments that are due and now CBN's Ways and Means will give an additional 2 trillion naira debt servicing payment annually. So by the time you put all of that together, then I'm beginning to ask, where's the fiscal space for all of the ideas and this one that we want to spend? Because he said something at the NESG. He said we want to spend in the economy to reach 10% GDP growth, and that gets me a bit worried.
Okay, Atiku's manifesto still with you. My covenants with Nigerians restore Nigeria to pre-2015 level. I was reading an article by from the BBC, and the way they described Atiku, the man who wants Nigeria to look back to go forward. And when I saw in his manifesto, restore Nigeria to pre-2015 level, you've seen from the campaigns of the PDP, oh, in 2015, or when the PDP was in power, inflation was this, Nigeria wasn't as bad as this, we need to go back. And Atiku has campaigned on it. How realistic do you think that the Nigeria of 2015 or pre-2015 is the Nigeria of today that Atiku's manifesto will work?
It's a different Nigeria. More Nigerians are poor. You know, it's a different Nigeria. Debt servicing, we were still hanging around less than $1 trillion. Now we're close to like 6 trillion. Definitely, inflation is, so these are things that it takes a while. But structurally, you have to decouple a whole lot of things. He has a good idea of the fact that he wants to be private sector focused, private sector driven. He wants to be a pro-business person. And I think anybody that wants to really move things differently has to posture like that we need to focus on the private sector is the engine of growth and putting a form of lean government in play. Now, the challenge is I see that the promises are also huge. Maybe some of them are not feasible. I mean, there's a part of manifesto that says wants to move manufacturing's contribution to GDP to 30%, or the fact that it wants to move GDP per capita from $2,000 per person to now 5,000. Those are things that one looks like, oh, these are difficult things to achieve. But for me, I feel that
is it difficult things to achieve within the time frame of a 4-year tenure if elected?
Yeah, because if you want to move GDP per capita from 2,000 to 5,000, you need to grow at 13% for the next 7 years.
A lot of jobs will be there to be able to drive that.
But one of the things I like about this manifesto is that I think of the three manifestos, if I'm allowed to say that, is that it's not the more clear part about job creation. To say this is how I want to create jobs currently. And I think it's focused heavily on the SME. But some of the things that you also said are grossly not feasible. For example, and some of the things are also incoherent. For example, you want to do 70,000 kilometers of road. The entire federal government road network is 32,000. So if you want to run a lean government, why are you trying to construct more roads than the entire road stock of the federal government? You want to also employ 1 million people in the police. You want to decentralize, and at the same time you still want to employ more people. So I still see a lot of some lack of incoherence. Because also big on devolution of power and restructuring and things like that. But when you look at it in terms of SME investment, job creation, it's also been talking about a $10 billion
I was coming fund. To that, yes, for small businesses. For small businesses.
Yes. So I feel like that's around 4.3 trillion naira. That's a huge investment that is putting.
Where will he get that money from?
And I think that's what people have not done well in this manifesto. Where will the money come from? Because if you look at the federal government, it's squeezed on all sides. And if, I mean, FIRS declared 10 trillion naira taxes, and the federal government does not even take significant amount from VAT, so you take 2.5 trillion from that. Then out of the 7.5, the federal government takes around 52%, so you're technically dealing with around 3.5 trillion from FIRS. Federal government revenue is no more than 5.5 trillion naira. We are servicing debt close to that amount already.
You have a budget of?
I have a budget of 21 trillion. We are not, our budget, our fiscal structure doesn't make sense in any jurisdiction.
Okay. Let me ask Carlo, what do you think about Atiku's manifesto? I don't know, I guess you would have heard what Sheung has said. Do you have anything more to say, perhaps around what Atiku mentioned, around breaking government monopoly in refineries? He's huge on that, power transmission and rail transportation. What else? Fight institutional corruption. How feasible is that? Because a lot of people are also pointing the fingers at him that how can you say you want to fight institutional corruption when perhaps even the pre-2015, during the PDP days, PDP was, tagged as a party that is well known for corruption, which President Buhari did come in 2015 to say one of his anchors is that I'm going to eliminate corruption. So how do you tie all of this into Atiku's manifesto of saying, I want to build a prosperous economy? And what would that prosperous economy look like?
Yeah, I think Atiku's manifesto is perfect. The problem is that it's 4 years late. It looks like they dusted up the 4-year manifesto to present in 2022 because it doesn't address the challenges today. The refinery issues was a 4-year issue. Now we have NNPC Limited that has taken over by events. Education, all the stuff he wants to do. We've moved on from those problems. We now have new problems. How we will fix ASU, how we create jobs, how we're going to talk about the digital economy, about cryptocurrency, Nollywood, all those things. I don't see a lot of introspection, deep linkages between his plan, his manifesto, his ideology, and what he wants to do. Give an example, his issue on university funding. He went from, I'm going to give university to the state government, to back to, we're going to give it to the private sector to fund. That's a big decision. Will the state have it? If the state have it, that's restructuring. That's more tax revenues going to the state. If the private sector has it, that's going to be a different kettle of fish entirely. How they're going to do the taxing with the FIRS. But they seem not to really understand what he wants to do with those old problems. So nothing new in the manifesto. It's well written. If it was the manifesto 10 years ago, it would be perfect. But for now, today, I think it's a bit late in addressing the issues we have today.
That was why I actually asked Sheung earlier that if this manifesto of Atiku will really work for Nigeria of today. And I like that you brought in that point. And perhaps for the writers of his manifesto or whatsoever, there's an NPC Limited right now, which is like a commercial entity. Perhaps
but that's also debatable.
Yes, it's also debatable.
It's also debatable because, and I'm not trying to, agree with this point, because until the government chooses to divest NNPC's shares, that's when, because NNPC looks like it's the same wine, same skin. Same bottle. We have to figure out a way to really run an NPC as a full private sector venture. Okay. If at the end of the day it's still 100% owned by government and decisions still circulate between the minister and the president, I still don't think that we've moved a bit forward, but not just enough. Yeah.
Okay, Carlo, if we still talk about Atiku's manifesto as it is right now, for Atiku saying that he will restore Nigeria's fractured unity, guarantee safety and securities of lives and property, do you think perhaps Atiku and Tinubu, which we mentioned earlier, that they are heavy on insecurity when you look at those two manifestos? I'll come back to the later two, Peter Obi and Kwakwanso.
Yeah, I think it's, what else will they say? Any president by default has got to fix insecurity. It's not to say, it is how are you going to do it? And it's going to only be fixed through the economy. It is jobs that will fix the insecurity in Nigeria. You take away the hardcore criminals, away from the guys that are doing crime because there are no jobs. Then the army and the police can face those hardcore criminals and terrorists and deal with them. So you get the linkage of there's insecurity and we have a bad economy. Okay. How can I use the economy to fix insecurity? It's absent from both manifestos that you talked about. It's a given. The US, Philippines, Nigeria, the number one job for you, apart from collecting taxes, is to fight insecurity. Now it's a campaign probably because in Nigeria you have bandits and terrorists taking over large swaths of farm areas, causing inflation to go up. So it's an economic issue. It's not an insecurity alone issue. And I'm not seeing the linkage this with that. I want to see how it will be done. How would you fix the rice bills? How would you make the bandits go away and go back to farm? How would you do it? That's what we want to see the details. I don't want to talk. The Congress also they still want to employ more guys into the army. That might not solve the problem. So what's the economic answer? It's missing, and that's my problem with that.
Yes, taking a look at the socio-economic solution to the insecurity question which we are facing now. Shewa, I'm coming back to you. Let's just suppose Atiku's manifesto with a Tinubu manifesto. And why I'm just opposing it now is between an APC government, which is currently on, and a PDP government, which we had pre-2015 till 2015. If you take a look at Tinubu's manifesto, Tinubu is also campaigning on the fact that, this present administration has done so well that I'm going to continue even President Buhari's legacy and all of that. But you know that what Nigerians have experienced, the data says it all. I don't need to start rehashing the data. Back to Atiku, 2015, President Jonathan was there as the president. PDP too. Do you think that Nigerians have forgotten the why they voted out a PDP government in 2015 to get result? And do you think they've gotten the results from an APC government that they will re-elect an APC government according to Tinubu's manifesto, or they will say a PDP government was better? The devil we know is better than the angel that we thought we were going to receive, an angel of God that brought the good news to Mary and Elizabeth in the Bible. So you understand what I mean?
I think we will know very soon. I mean, because like Kalu said, this economy will be a big conversation here. And it's not easier, because we have fuel subsidy right now, inflation, poverty. So the reaction of Nigerians to how the APC, and I think the environment has not been too helpful to the APC government. We had, even though they started very slow, which I think had a significant impact on how they moved. But if you look at the fact that we had the Russian-Ukraine war, we've had even the pandemic in itself, it's not helped a bit. But they also were not proactive on certain issues. And now that we even had the record high oil prices, we could not even drill the oil. So I feel that Nigerians would have to react to that. Do we want to go back and see what does it look like to PDP? Because it's good in a democracy that if you're not satisfied with the status quo, you say, where is your alternative? Because it sends a message in the whole system to say, if you don't perform, we would get you out. And that could even help internal criticism within party. When people understand that if the president is messing up a certain things, maybe like closure of the border in Benin Republic, people within the party can hand-call it on him and say, yes, this is not a right policy. Because we might lose political power. But I think at the end of the day, because the election there are also emotive choices. People look at tribe, look at identity, people look at self-preservation. A whole lot of things come into play. And I think by the time we put all the matrix together, we'll know where the finally keep their.
I hope we'll have more time today so that we'll look at, with all those matrices which we're talking about, perhaps where Nigerians will be tilting to with what we have on ground as data. But let me move over to Carlo. Let's come back. Let's go over now to Peter Obi's manifesto, which he titled is Possible Pact with Nigerians. What do you think about Peter Obi's manifesto? 62 pages. We can take a few. Leapfrog Nigeria into the fourth industrial revolution. He's talked so much about consumption to production. In fact, the BBC article that I read, let me also mention how they described Peter Obi, the frugal businessman capturing young Nigerians' hearts. That was how the BBC in an article did describe him, the frugal businessman capturing young Nigerians' hearts. So, Kalu, what do you think? Reduce debt to revenue ratio by implementing radical economic policies. I don't think he mentioned anything about double-digit growth. I may be wrong, but I did not see that there. So, Kalu, over to you.
I think with his manifesto, it's a lot of new ideas, lots of very, very new ideas. Number one, the hourly pay. That to me it's a game changer to say we're going to now pay. It's not just to pay you by the hour. It changes the wage structure and the mobility of labor, especially for a country that has lots of young people, do a lot of gig economy type, say IT. That's a game changer for them. Hourly wages there. When he talks about consumption to production, I felt he did not do a good job in explaining what that means. That's also a wonderful idea to say we're going to take the funds of the government away from funding importation of consumption, but rather investing in education. He wants to link fiber optics to all state capitals and to all state universities. So universities now become centers of not just education, but of SME job creation. You're in university, you start a business in university, you can then go out and start a job, start a company, just once you graduate. He didn't really do a good job in linking that, but I felt in terms of the manifesto in general, lots of fresh ideas, lots of people and youth tell ideas, lots of ways to stop wastage is also in that manifesto, talking about how we're going to link universities to the tax revenues of the private sector. So what that means is that I could go to my alma mater, give them money, and I get a tax credit. That's wonderful. That's how it's done everywhere in the world. You take the wealth of the nation and you allocate it, not just the government, but the private sector also investing in education. So I like the direction of the manifesto. I think it's very refreshing. It's totally brand new. And like I said, the only part I didn't like was not linking and explaining what consumption to manufacturing. List it out so folks understand exactly what this means. They've done it subsequently, but it wasn't done so well in that manifesto.
Now, the other part which I want to take you up on is what he mentioned, talking about the payment of hourly wages. Did you derive satisfaction from how this will be done? Bearing in mind that Nigeria is a country that operates on a monthly salary scale. If you want to do this, how do you measure productivity? Productivity to labor. In the US where you are, of course, they do that. Hourly wages, someone is earning I think $15 an hour, that's like the average now, or 25, So how do you measure that? How do you begin to tell companies that, okay, it's not going to be a monthly salary now, you're going to be paying your workers by the hour?
It doesn't change how you pay. You can still pay monthly. I think that's misconception. You can still pay monthly or quarterly or weekly if you want to. The point is this, right? You can have multiple employers. What that means is this: you pay me for the time I work for you. If I work in quote unquote X bank and I work 9 to 5 with X bank, I get paid 9 to 5 with X bank. I can go to B bank and work 4 to 7 and get paid 4 to 7. So I have two incomes. Nigeria gets two incomes to tax, but I am one person. I could work full-time, I could work part-time. I could work part-time and also go to school. So it doesn't change per se how you get paid. What it changes is how your pay or how your productivity is calculated. Right now, the companies will pay you for 30 days, point blank. You work for a month, you get paid for a month. Now they will pay you based on the hours that you take up. So if you're full-time and you work 9 to 5 in Nigeria, you get paid 40 hours a week. That's all you want to do. But now with hourly pay, you can work for a bank 9 to 5, then you can work for, say, 2 hours, do IT. It's your call. So that's more productivity. That's we're getting more man hours per person. The government gets more tax revenues per person. It's the same labor workforce, but then you don't remove this casual labor thing, right? Because there's no more going to be casual labor. It's instead going to be workers that are working at less hours. So if you work for, say, a fast food company, it's not you being a casual worker, you're just not a full-time employee. So you can do more gig jobs and get paid per hour. So it's easier to do minimum wage. You can say Kano would pay this minimum wage, Edo would pay this minimum wage based on the state. In America, it's a federal recommended minimum wage of 7.45. 15 is what most states pay now because of inflation, but it's still a federal recommendation. So same thing in Nigeria, devolve the wage structure. Lagos should pay more because I have a higher cost of living, but Yobe shouldn't pay as much as Lagos. So this is why I say it's a game changer, because now you now have more folks can get a job, because those companies will then open up more slots for hourly, for casual, not for casual now, but for part-time work, which you can do. You can go to school and then work for a company for 4 hours, and you have benefits. It's not casualization. So I love that.
Okay. Sean, do you have any other thing to say concerning P2B's manifesto before we go to Kwakwanso? Because I'm looking at my time.
It's a good manifesto. A few things. Number one, I didn't like the fact that there was not enough quantifiable commitment. He didn't put enough numbers in his manifesto. So it had, because he had things around.
But he's one man that reads out numbers.
Yeah. It's a one man that reads out numbers. So I was worried about why can't he say
numbers were not there.
The numbers were not in that manifesto compared to what you gave to other candidates. A little bit of incoherence on putting personnel costs, codifying minimum wage with insecurity. So I guess maybe that's an arrangement issue. I like his manifesto to some extent. The fact that it fit his brand. It was big on the fact that we need to move from production to consumption to production. I feel we need consumption and production in my own view. But I understand what he meant, that we need to be an economy that produces heavily and produce for export specifically. So I think he addressed that significantly well. He went to the hard issues. He spoke about our story report. He understand. He spoke about the first subsidy.
He spoke about the Siemens.
He spoke about the Siemens
agreement that he would
understand.
He also spoke about the National Commission Act, that he would sign it into law if elected. That was done since 2018.
So I like the fact that he took the hard issues and it was clear. A lot of the other candidates were not too clear.
Okay.
Then finally, my point would be cost of governance. I also feel he was the only one that took a section how to fully address the issue of cost of governance.
Let's come to Kwakwanso. I looked at Kwakwanso manifesto, and one thing that really came to me that was so glaring is that I didn't see anything around fuel subsidy. In Kwakwanso's stuff document. What I actually did, so like coal mining stuff. I was like, are you sure I'm reading the right manifesto? In case the NNPP is listening to me, please send me the book. Send me your book, about the manifesto. So the question which, you can see right there on the screen, is Kwakwanso's manifesto, is it robust enough? Because even when I talked about fuel subsidy, I said, how will you carry out that task without, he didn't even mention it. So that means if elected, will the country still be bleeding? What do you think before I go to Carlo?
I think his side of the economy was not coherent enough, and he didn't really contextualize the issues well. He had I think his manifesto is a huge one. He went on he theorized things very, very well, but in some sort of way, you also need to say what are the key biters, what are the key points that would shift the system. What do you want to anchor your reform agenda on? We can say article pro-business restructuring. We can say Tinubu wants to be a big spender. We also know that he has huge plans for agriculture based on what he wrote in his manifesto, and also industrialization, and also regional coordination. We can say it will be production to consumption, and also cost of governance, and also security. But I'm still struggling to look into that manifesto. What exactly is your central message? And even seeing and building that central message as a key tenant in his entire media exposures. His brand fit everyday on human capital development. A lot of people had emphasized what he did with that in Kano. And I think that's where I wanted to see much more strength, But like I said, I've read the manifesto. It looks very bulky. It said a whole lot of things, but I'm just asking what exactly are key outcomes.
It was not really exact.
Yeah, exact.
Was that the sense?
That's the feeling now. Exact about what do I draw out from this, so that I can know I can hold you accountable.
Okay, Carlo, what do you have to say about Kwakwanso's manifesto very quickly? Because I'm looking at our time. We have to go like in the next 5 or 7 minutes. Carlo, I can't hear you. Unmute your system. I can hear you now.
It's very, very light manifesto. I really see much of the economy. Taking Naira, for instance, he wants to strengthen, he wants to stabilize, he wants to value the Naira all at the same time. All these three things have different ways to get it done and have different implementation techniques, but he wants to do all at the same time in one document. So very, very light, just one pager for the economy, not good enough.
Did you also capture that there were no fuel subsidy talks in that manifesto? Because I was looking for it and I did not see it. So I thought, Nancy, are you sure you are reading the right manifesto?
Yeah, I mean, he talks about transportation and objectives and all that. It feels like a very, very tactical document. This is what I will do, like steps, like key action points, but not really in terms of overall strategy, right? I'm seeing kerosene and solar panel, rural electrification here, things like that. That's what we're talking about, harnessing energy resources, stuff like that, the bullet
points, exactly.
But not really taking it home for Nigerians here.
Okay. Carlos, still sticking with you, do you think that Nigerians will be heading to the polls with a sense of the house, of how the candidates have, presented themselves to us? They've been speaking across states in Nigeria, rallies. Do you think that Nigerians, about 30-something days now to the elections, that perhaps we are satisfied with the house from these candidates?
I think, in all honesty, the only candidate that has managed to communicate a mantra has been Peter Obi. That production to consumption, okay, people know it. If you say Peter Obi, they will tell you about that. Atiku, not really. There is no buzzword or tagline that you can say.
Carlo, how about the $10 billion he's promising small businesses?